They pointed fake guns at my face and demanded my shotgun. Two clowns in Halloween cop costumes thought they could storm my life and take what wasn't theirs, waving plastic badges like they were FBI. And the worst part, they weren't strangers. They were sent by my HOA president, a woman who decided to turn my past into her personal weapon. My name's Thomas White. I spent 20 years with the Bureau Organized Crime Weapons Trafficking, the kind of cases where one wrong move got you or your partner killed. I retired early not by choice but because Nevada 2008 left me broken. My partner, Detective Danny Ramos, died on a raid that went sideways, and I've carried that guilt every day since. I moved to Sunny Meadows hoping for peace, routine, a quiet place to breathe. Saturday mornings at Pine Ridge Shooting Range were my therapy. Same parking spot, same thermos of black coffee. Danny's nameplate engraved inside my shotgun case. That ritual was how I kept myself steady. And then she showed up. Elizabeth Jones, HOA president, walking stereotype of power-hungry suburban royalty. Designer handbag, discount shoes that smile too wide, too polished, hiding cracks she couldn't cover with concealer. She marched up to my lane with a clipboard like she was about to cite me for breathing the wrong way. Community safety protocols, she called it. Claimed she needed documentation for my firearms activity. Said HOA liability was on the line. I kept it civil, polite, but firm. Ma'am, HOAs don't have jurisdiction over private property or shooting ranges. You might want to talk to a lawyer before you hand out more of these fake citations. Her smile slipped just a fraction, and I saw the flash in her eyes. That wasn't about safety. That was about control. From that moment, the war began. Citations started piling up on my doorgrass. Height violations, mailbox non-compliance fines for things no sane person would notice. Neighbors I'd never spoken to walked by with clipboards snapping photos like I was some kind of suspect under surveillance. And the crown jewel, she trespassed into my backyard memorial, Danny's Purple Heart, his photos the stones I'd arranged around a flag. She stood there holding his medal like it was evidence of a crime. I wanted to tear the medal out of her hands, but my training held me back. Ma'am, you're trespassing. That's sacred ground. Put it down. She just smiled and said, some might say keeping a shrine to a dead officer is unhealthy, maybe even a warning sign. That cut deeper than any bullet. She was desecrating Danny's memory to break me down, and worst of all, it was working. For weeks, I sat in my kitchen staring at the pile of notices, the folder she left with my federal records, my medical discharge, my PTSD diagnosis. Neighbors whispered some crossed the street to avoid me. My wife asked me if maybe we should just pay the fees, sell the house, walk away. And I almost agreed. I almost believed maybe they were right, that maybe I really was the problem. But then Ryan Elizabeth's son broke. I overheard him shouting at her in their driveway. Dad had PTSD too. Mom? He was Army Special Forces. He wasn't dangerous. You're stalking our neighbor. His father had died from burn pit cancer. The kid knew what military trauma looked like, and he knew what his mom was doing was wrong. That cracked her perfect mask, and it cracked something in me too. If Ryan could stand up to his mother, then I could damn well stand up for Danny. I started documenting everything, every fake citation, every trespass, every word. Michael, the range owner and Iraq vet, stood with me. And Agent Tracy Clark, my old supervisor from the Bureau, picked up the phone when I called. Thomas, she said, this isn't just local drama. We've seen this pattern in other states. Document everything. We'll move when the time is right. Elizabeth, though, wasn't slowing down. She staged a community meeting, turned it into a circus, projected my house on a screen with red circles, painted my memorial as a shrine to violence. She spun my PTSD therapy sessions into evidence that I was a ticking time bomb. Neighbors' muttered fear spread like wildfire. I felt the walls closing in until Mrs. Patterson, my elderly neighbor, stood up. Elizabeth, I've lived next to Mr. White for 2 years. He's polite. He helps me with my groceries. He's never been a threat. Are we really doing this? That moment cracked the crowd's blind obedience, and then Michael walked in arms-crossed voice like steel. I know what real threats look like. The only dangerous person in this room is the one harassing a veteran with community funds. The room erupted in chaos, and Elizabeth snapped. "Fine. If the HOA won't protect this community, I'll bring in federal authority myself." The next morning I heard pounding on my door. "Federal agents open up." My heart jumped until I looked out the window and saw Elizabeth in a fake FBI windbreaker, flanked by Ryan and another neighbor in dollar store tactical gear. She waved a forged warrant that looked like it had been printed off Google. I stepped outside, calm but loud enough for the neighbors gathering with their phones. "This is fascinating," I said. "Federal warrants don't come with FedEx barcodes. Judges don't sign as Judge Smith. And this font Comic Sans really?" Some neighbors laughed. Elizabeth's plastic badge glinted in the sun. She pressed on anyway. "You're under investigation. Hand over the weapon in your memorial garden." And that's when my patience ended. I went to my car, brought out Danny's shotgun, and set it down where everyone could see. "This weapon belonged to Detective Danny Ramos," I said, voice steady but raw. "He died in Las Vegas, 2008, taking a bullet meant for me. He held off 8 armed men so our team could live. His last words were, 'Take care of my gun partner.' For 2 years I've honored that promise. Every Saturday I shoot to remember his courage. Not because I'm dangerous, because I'm alive when he's not." The crowd went silent. Some cried. Even Ryan looked at me like he'd finally understood. Elizabeth's costume suddenly looked ridiculous, insulting. And then my phone rang, Agent Clark's voice booming through the speaker. "Agent White, we're en route. Is the subject attempting to seize personal property under false federal authority?" Minutes later, the real SUVs rolled up. Real agents, real badges, real authority. Clark stepped out, calm as ever. She took one look at Elizabeth's knockoff windbreaker and said, "Ma'am, impersonating a federal officer carries a 20-year sentence." The crowd actually laughed this time. Ryan handed Clark his phone with recordings of everything: his mother's harassment, her misuse of HOA funds, the training calls she'd taken from out-of-state numbers. Clark's face hardened as she scanned the evidence. "This documents systematic civil rights violations, impersonation, and conspiracy." She turned to Elizabeth. "You're under arrest." Elizabeth shrieked as the cuffs clicked shut, still yelling about protecting the community, about veterans being dangerous. But nobody believed her anymore. Even her own son turned away ashamed. The same neighbors who once crossed the street to avoid me were now staring at her like she was the monster under their beds all along. That's where it ended for her, on my porch, hands behind her back, the mask ripped off in front of everyone. And the lesson: bullies only win when you let them. Stand your ground, and even the loudest pretender crumbles under the weight of their own lies.